beautiful people. So today we're going to be testing 10 of the drugstore concealers. I decided to do this video just because I feel like a lot of people do videos on a specific brand, for example, and then they'll talk about all the products in that specific brand. But what I decided to do is to take all of one product from different brands and test them all together. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So I started off with concealers just because there's so many new concealers out right now and from so many different brands, and so I'm gonna be doing like all the drugstore brands, and I think I have majority of them. I have everything from NYX, Maybelline, CoverGirl, I have e.l.f. products, I have Rimmel London, and so we're gonna take 10 of drugstore concealers and I'm gonna test them out on my arm. I've used all the concealers and I do have a preference for some over the other, and usually I'm gonna just rate them on like the consistency, the coverage, the formula, and creasing, if they crease under the eye or not. For all my concealers I do set them with powder, but some are a little bit more matted than others, so that's what we're going to be discussing in today's video. So if you guys like to see what my top 3 concealers from the drugstore are out of the 10 that we're going to be testing, just keep on watching. Okay, so these are the 10 concealers that I got from the drugstore. Some are older than others. I have 2 new releases from CoverGirl, I have the new release from Milani, and I also have the new release from NYX, the NYX Gotcha Covered concealers. So these are some of the ones that I picked up from the drugstore from Ulta, just to see and compare them side by side and see what their consistency is and what their coverage is. And so let's get started. So I'm gonna test this one out. This is the Gotcha Covered concealer from NYX. It comes in like a little tube. It comes in pretty good, and this one is a really nice thicker formula, and I really enjoy the coverage of this one. My only setback with this one is that it doesn't really dry as matte as some of the other ones, so it stays kind of glossy. You definitely have to set this one with powder. Now, the next one we're gonna try out is this Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. This is definitely one of the old and good ones that I've had for quite some time. It comes in like a doe foot applicator, and the coverage is absolutely amazing. It's really easy to blend. It's just really nice on the skin, and it does set pretty quickly. So the next one we're going to talk about is also from Maybelline, and this is the Instant Age Rewind Eraser for Dark Circles. It has a little sponge applicator on the top. This one is pretty easy to apply. The coverage is absolutely great, as you guys can see, and this one is more of like maybe a bit more of a liquidy state, but it also sets beautifully, and it's just absolutely amazing. And what I also wanted to say is that all these are not going to exactly match in shade, because it was really hard to kind of match them without actually testing them at the store. So some of these might actually have like a different tint to them, but overall I tried to stay in the similar type of shade. So this next one is the NYX HD Studio Photogenic Concealer, and it comes in like a little tube, and it has a little applicator, and this one is more of like a peachier tone, and the coverage on this one is okay. I feel like it is kind of patchy. See, even when I'm swiping it, you guys can see that it's not as full coverage as the other 3, but this one, especially in this shade, which is CW03, is a little bit more of a peachier tone, so it will brighten your under circles. Now, next, moving on, is the new Milani Retouch and Erase Lifting Concealer, and this one comes with like a little sponge applicator as well, and like a squeezy tube. So this one actually, you can squeeze it out, and then it comes with the applicator as well. And I feel like the applicator on this is really nice. It is pretty full coverage. I feel like it's very similar to the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. I really enjoyed this one. It doesn't really crease under the eye. What I found about this one is that you can easily layer it because it sets pretty fast and it is really nice on the skin. I don't know if you guys can see, but the first one, the NYX Gotcha Covered, it's still very liquidy and it sets extremely slowly. So that's a negative for me because I don't have time in the morning to just sit there and, you know, wait for your concealer to set before you powder it. And what I found with this one, if you don't wait for it to set, for this first NYX Got You Covered one, it will crease. Okay, moving on. We have this e.l.f. concealer, also in like a doe foot applicator. It comes out like this, and then it slides on really nicely. The formula is really thick and nice on this one. It is very pigmented, and I really like this one. It sets pretty quickly under the eyes. It doesn't really crease, and it's just really good overall. The next concealer we're gonna swatch is this Rimmel London Match Perfection concealer. It comes in an actual squeezy tube, but it has more of like a hair tip, and I don't really like that because it does make the concealer streaky. You have to actually really squeeze in, and I feel like it does make it a little bit harder to apply because it is kind of patchy from the actual bristles of the brush. But the consistency isn't the greatest, and even though I feel like you can layer this one up, it's definitely not one of my favorites. Next, moving on, we have the Rimmel London Concealer Hide the Blemish in a stick formula. I actually do prefer liquid concealers versus like a stick formula, but this one is more of a peachier toned, and I don't like this one at all. It's actually really hard to blend out like with your foundation. It does seem a bit grabby when you try to mix it in with the foundation, and this one does not have a pleasant scent to it. It smells kind of like old makeup, but I don't like this one at all. The last two I have here is the CoverGirl Ready Set Gorgeous and then the CoverGirl Outlast All Day, and both of these are new to their collection from CoverGirl. And so this one comes also in the doe foot applicator that looks like this, and then you just swipe it across. And this one I found to be really patchy. I don't know if you guys can see this on camera, but it's kind of hard to build it up. Even if I grab a little bit more, it's still kind of a thin formula. And unless you want to just brighten your under eyes, this isn't going to conceal. And this is a lighter shade that I got, but it is kind of patchy and not full coverage. And I feel like it's just harder to build this one up. Now, last but not least, we have the CoverGirl Outlast All Day. It comes in the little fuzzy tip. It's easy to apply. I feel like this one does have a little bit more coverage than the Ready Set Gorgeous from CoverGirl, but this one is still kind of streaky and the formula is pretty thin. Even when you try to blend it out with your finger, it's still kind of not thick enough for it to conceal and do a lot of work. So even when you blend it out, it is kind of streaky, and then when you try to apply a little more, it kind of moves the product underneath, even though I didn't really let it set right now. But once you let it dry and set, it doesn't really crease under your eyes, so it is really nice, even though the coverage is not completely full coverage. I actually like this one, even though it's kind of more of a thin formula. Once you build it up and let it set, it doesn't really crease under your eyes, and it is really nice as a concealer, especially compared to the other Ready Set Gorgeous formula from CoverGirl. And as you can see, some of these have already set, and others, like this one for example, this first one from NYX, it's still really shiny, really glossy. And then I don't know if you guys can see, but there's like little bubbles that are forming on top of it, and when you move it around, it just blends in, but it's still in a very liquidy state, and I feel like this one oxidizes a lot compared to some of the other ones that I've tested. And I definitely prefer some over the others. For example, this Rimmel London, I would definitely say pass on this one. The CoverGirl Ready Set Gorgeous, I wasn't really impressed with the formula on the coverage, so I would pass, and I would definitely pass on the NYX Got You Covered, because even though the coverage is extremely pigmented, it just takes forever to set, and unless you can use a little bit of the product and set it right away, it will crease pretty quickly, so I would definitely pass on that one. So then you're left with these, and if I had to pick between the Maybelline Fit Me and the Age Rewind, I would stick with the Maybelline Fit Me concealer. Even though this one is absolutely great, if I had to pick between the two, I would pick the Maybelline Fit Me. And then this one, I feel like this HD Studio Photogenic NYX concealer is good if you are doing like a photo shoot or if you're doing pictures. I feel like this one is great, but for everyday use, I feel like this one is a little bit too dry of a formula. So I do like this one, but only for special occasion and not for everyday because it is pretty drying. So for everyday, I would pass on this one. The Milani one, I absolutely love. It's very similar in consistency to the Maybelline Fit Me, so I would definitely recommend this one. As I would recommend this one as well. I feel like this one was a great, highly pigmented formula. And then these two are kind of really similar in texture and consistency. And if I had to pick between these two, I would probably pick the CoverGirl Outlast All Day. So these are my top 4 concealers that I would recommend from the drugstore. Hope you guys enjoyed the little play around with all the concealers. My top 3 are these 3 right here. The Maybelline Fit Me concealer that I feel like has been in the drugstore and a favorite of mine for a very, very long time. It's absolutely great. It has amazing coverage. It does not crease. It sits beautifully on the skin. It blends well, and it's just absolutely my favorite from the drugstore. Then also a newer release that came out from Milani, this Retouch and Erase Lighting concealer that looks like this, and this is definitely in my top 3. It has a very similar consistency to the Maybelline one. It has great coverage, and I feel like it's really nice in the consistency of the formula. So this one is definitely my top 3. And then the last one, the last place, I was really kind of torn apart because there's a couple that had a really similar texture and consistency, but I decided to go with the e.l.f. concealer. I feel like this one sets quite nicely. It does have very great coverage, and it's extremely affordable, so you can't really go wrong with it. And those are my top 3 out of the 10 that we went over, and this included newer and older releases, but I feel like I had to test them all side by side in order to get like a great comparison. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel. I think I'm going to be doing like a lot of different testings from the drugstore, especially with different kinds of brands but the same type of product. So for example, you know, all the concealers or all the setting powders from different brands. I'm definitely going to be doing that kind of a series of videos. So give this video a thumbs up if you guys enjoyed the swatchings and the reviews, or if I helped you guys out at all. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter, superlady246, and I hope you guys have a great day and a great rest of your week. Bye! Mwah!